Ubisoft is one of those game companies that no one really has particularly strong feelings about. It's a multi-tentacled sea monster puppeting the corpses of half a dozen franchises while hiding its bulk underwater. However, as a company, Ubisoft has some significant issues that seem to be organizational, systemic, and pervasive. I don't know that they can be addressed with anything less drastic than a full divestment from the micromanaging and over-controlling Guillemot family and a removal of most of their current leadership. Since that's not going to happen, I'm going to try to catalog all of the issues with the company as it stands now, in hopes that one day they might be addressed satisfactorily. I have a small disclaimer here first. Ubisoft has sent me free games for reviews. They've sent me complimentary gifts. They've even donated games to be given away for a charity event I hosted for Child's Play charity a few years ago. And I currently have emails out to their PR team for statements on other ongoing videos. I have a relationship with Ubisoft, one which I intend to continue, and I also don't have any huge distaste for the company or the people who work there. I don't hate Ubisoft. None of that is to say that I intend to take it easy on Ubisoft. Even with all of this, it's just a fact that today's Ubisoft kinda sucks. I wish I didn't have to start this video with an immediately too real moment, but no video about Ubisoft in the current climate can fail to mention the accusations of misconduct and hostile workplace culture at Ubisoft. In 2020, in the middle of the pandemic and during the very public reckoning occurring at gaming companies left and right, Ubisoft was hit with accusations by French newspaper Libération against several C-level executives, including the chief creative officer, the head of Ubisoft Montreal, the co-founder of Ubisoft Toronto, the Assassin's Creed creative director, 2 vice presidents, and the global head of human resources. To their credit, Ubisoft immediately cut ties with all the named parties. They hired a new head of diversity and inclusion, hired a chief workplace officer, and they brought in an outside employee complaint review board. However, while all of this sounds like good, strong steps forward, employees at Ubisoft continue to make significant complaints and accusations against the company. And it's starting to look like maybe Ubisoft really isn't doing much of anything at all. Employees spoke to Kotaku and said that several of the known abusers at the company were promoted. Complainants were being sworn to secrecy about their complaints, and there's a strong lack of transparency in the company. According to many sources, during this entire time, a strong and open racism was also prevalent in the company, with Asian employees being told, "When you smile, you look like someone eating lemon." That "You Asians, you all look the same." And when it was reported to HR, those employees were being told that there was no chance of anything being done, since the people saying these bad things were directors who had been at the company for decades, or that complaints would just cause additional problems for the employee. That third-party review board appears to be where complaints go to quietly disappear as well, with employees saying that they have waited over a year for resolutions to issues, only to never receive any sort of feedback about whether issues were addressed at all, let alone resolved. During all this, Yves Guillemot, CEO at Ubisoft, has said, "I have always valued free expression at Ubisoft and made noises that addressing issues are a priority," at the same time that his cousin, Ubisoft Canada CEO Christophe Dorine, has said, "Obviously, this does not prevent journalists from trying to contact you. If that happens, we ask that you forward the request to our media relations officer. It's the right thing to do. But it's also a commitment you made under the Code of Conduct, the anti-leak policy, and your employment contract. I could not write a better veiled threat that you will be fired for talking to journalists." Those who have risked being terminated, to speak anonymously, have said, "There's nothing more I can say about our demands or management's response to them because there's been nothing, no attempt to reach out, no new measures to meet them." This has led to a shockingly high number of resignations amongst top performers at Ubisoft. Axios reported that attrition at the company is 12% annually. And to put that into better terms, 5 of the top 25 credited people from Far Cry 6 are already gone, and 12 of the top 50 from Valhalla have left. This has real-world effects on the games they're producing, as employees are now saying that it has led to stalls, delays, and cancellations. Ubisoft's reply? They're hiring 2,600 more interns and junior staff, so their staffing levels are actually still within industry norms. They also announced a pay raise of up to 20% more for senior staff and 5% more for junior staff. One of the issues at Ubisoft since then has been claims of increasing pay gaps amongst workers in a seemingly unforeseen consequence. Assault, racism, resignations, pay gaps. There is no neat wrap-up here, and I suspect there won't be for a long time. Probably the most common reason that Ubisoft shows up in news articles is because they are canceling a game. It's such a common trope that at this point I don't think anyone thinks Ubisoft games are real until they're released for 3 months. The list of canceled games is long and strong and includes games like Splinter Cell VR, Ghost Recon Frontline, Pioneer, Hyperscape, King Arthur, and more. And we're all waiting for news that Beyond Good and Evil 2, the Prince of Persia remake, The Division Heartland, Roller Champions, Oddballers, and Project Q have all been canceled too. Then there's the games that have been delayed, like Assassin's Creed Rift and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. And pretty quickly it starts to appear like Ubisoft's slate of announced games is a whiteboard being wiped off as part of a joke. But at least you can go play the games that are already out, unless of course you want to play them online. Yes, Ubisoft slashed the multiplayer functionality out of over 100 games in the past few months, including any in-game rewards that were unlocked by the use of Uplay's unit points. Games like Anno 2070, Far Cry Blood Dragon, Space Junkies, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, and over 100 more are losing the ability to play multiplayer, the ability to log in or use any online features, the ability to redeem rewards, the ability to install and access DLC, in some cases, the ability to even play the single-player game, and more. Perhaps you caught where I said that included the ability to install and access DLC, and yes, you heard me correctly. As part of Ubisoft's cost-cutting attempts, strongly inferred by their desire to eliminate the online costs associated with non-profitable games, they have also chosen to eliminate the ability to play DLC you paid for. Games like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Driver San Francisco, Far Cry 3, Silent Hunter 5, and Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands will no longer allow you to download and play the DLC associated with the games. Only DLCs and online features will be affected by the upcoming decommissioning. Current owners of those games will still be able to access, play, or re-download them. Ubisoft sent out this statement as if to say, don't worry, yes, we're deleting the DLC you paid for, but at least you can still play the games without the DLC you paid for. Altogether, there are over 50 different games that you could have paid Ubisoft to play their DLC, which now, today, you cannot play. That's over 50 different times that Ubisoft bait and switched you, sold you something which they would later steal back from you, all under the guise that closing the online services for some older games allows us to focus our resources on delivering great experiences for players who are playing newer or more popular titles. Except as we just talked about, they aren't releasing new games either, are they? NFTs, the blockchain crypto. Over the past couple of years, Ubisoft has entangled themselves with all of it. Since 2019, Ubisoft has experimented with blockchains and NFTs at their Strategic Innovation Lab. an internal group that hires researchers and explores various technologies and how to gamify them. RTX, for example, or blockchain. This all came together in December 2021 when Ubisoft announced they would introduce NFTs into the PC version of Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And boy, people did not like that. Without going too deeply into the blockchain and its value or lack thereof, Ubisoft's implementation specifically was especially troublesome. The argument about why blockchains are so powerful is often surrounded by the word decentralization. However, Ubisoft's attempt was nothing if not centralized. It was so deeply controlled by Ubisoft that the only explanation is either they didn't understand blockchain or they expected that you wouldn't either. To explain a little bit, Ubisoft wanted to offer cosmetic skins, hats, guns, pants, each limited to a set number, with a serial number displayed on the blockchain and in-game, and metadata of the history of that specific skin. We've seen this sort of thing work, not with blockchain, but definitely with skins, especially in games like CSGO, where rare skins can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It makes sense why Ubisoft might see that and want to get their hands into that money pile. The secondary market is often as large or larger than the primary market for any collectible, so owning that market is doubling your profit, hypothetically. However, those other implementations, such as on Steam, did so, as I mentioned, without blockchain. So why did Ubisoft want to use blockchain? And this is when decentralization would normally be bandied about, except that Ubisoft's implementation isn't decentralized at all. Instead, it's completely controlled by Ubisoft, and it has a lot of restrictions on it as well. You must be 18, you must be in an approved country, you must use two-factor authentication, and you must tie it to your Ubisoft Connect account. A centrally owned and controlled system subject to Ubisoft's terms and conditions. If you get banned, yeah, your NFTs are banned too, including on third-party marketplaces because they control your access to your account, which controls that access to those items on the blockchain. They even specifically say they will block transactions into your wallet if they choose to. That's the exact opposite of decentralized. Further, they only allow you to resell through specific third-party marketplaces they authorize and approve, which of course they take a fee through. All this while arguing that any scams, hacks, or threats are outside of their responsibility because, thanks to the decentralization of blockchains, well, they just can't reverse or cancel transactions. None of the benefits, all of the problems, and additional hands in your pocket the whole way. What an incredibly awful implementation. And all this while offering NFTs that included none of the legal benefits of an NFT either. No, Ubisoft isn't giving up the right to create derivative works, to use the item in a video, to sell merchandise or fractionalized shares. No, they give you nothing. Because again, Ubisoft owns these things and controls them, not you. So with that implementation, again, outside of the actual concerns many people have about the blockchain in the first place, what is the point and purpose of these NFTs except to generate passive income through secondary market sales? It would have been better to have this just be a regular DLC item, because at least that way you get protections from scams and hacks. Worse still is that Ubisoft tried to play this out as if it made your investment worth more, because, well, what if Ubisoft disappears? Your items live on in the blockchain, see? Except they are heavily restricted, centralized NFTs that ultimately are only useful inside of a Ubisoft game. What value does this NFT have if Ubisoft stops existing? The entire value proposition is literally that it's tied to a game that you want to play, that it's tied to a popular franchise, and you get to have this rare and unique skin. So there really is no longevity, no future, no outlasting Ubisoft. And again, either they didn't think about this, or they expected that you wouldn't either. So the NFTs lasted for about 4 months before Ubisoft quietly set the website into museum mode, and there hasn't been a single sale of a single item in over 6 months. But don't worry, Ubisoft has a statement to make. I think gamers don't get what a digital secondary market can bring to them. For now, because of the current situation and context of NFTs, gamers really believe it's first destroying the planet and second just a tool for speculation. But what we at Ubisoft are seeing first is the end game. The end game is about giving players the opportunity to resell their items once they're finished with them, or they're finished playing the game itself. So it's really for them. It's really beneficial, but they don't get it for now. See, you don't get it, do you, gamer? How could you, stupid gamer, not understand this thing? You're so stupid. It's okay though, because literally 1 week later, Ubisoft decided to gift all those hardworking developers working on Breakpoint a month's No, it was a free NFT, a hat. What's most interesting to me is that Ubisoft, when they announced this to their teams, said that if a developer wanted one, they would be automatically dropped into the developer's crypto wallet. And it made me wonder, is it required to give Ubisoft your wallet address in order to work there? I would literally never allow my employer access to see inside my wallet. What an epic series of missteps. Let's talk about that launcher. Uplay. Sorry, Ubisoft Club. Sorry, Ubisoft Connect. They changed the name a few times, you see, in a pretty transparent bid to distance themselves from the very negative connotations associated with Uplay. Let's just lay out the basics here. Ubisoft Connect, which I will continue to erroneously call Uplay, is a launcher similar to the Epic Games launcher or Steam, except that Uplay also launches whenever you launch the game from Epic or Steam. Yes, a second launcher that is launched when you launch the game from another launcher. This was all launched in a bid to increase Ubisoft's control over their game distribution, as well as increase profitability by forcing players to use Uplay and therefore be more likely to actually buy something in Uplay. For those of you who are unaware, Steam takes 30% of a game's sales, and Epic takes 12%. So every sale Ubisoft can convince you to make inside of Uplay is worth up to 40% more than the same purchase made through Steam. This is exactly why we have EA's Origin, Activision Blizzard's Battle.net, Epic's Epic Game Store, GOG's Galaxy, the now defunct Bethesda BethNet launcher, and yes, Ubisoft's Ubisoft Connect. Now, Uplay has gotten a lot better over the years, and then I'll tell you how bad it was for a very long time, but it's still not a great platform. The store is difficult to browse, it commonly doesn't even work to the point that sometimes you can't even spend money through it, it crashes, it closes games on you, it launches user access control every single time it updates. It's not a pretty thing. Worse still is when it simply breaks and a game becomes unplayable, as happened to a lot of players when Far Cry 6 was released. Ubisoft Connect simply didn't. Connect, that is. It would fail to authorize, it would fail to sync, it would even forget you owned the game and ask if you wanted to pay for it again. When you did get it to work, the Uplay overlay caused so much lag and stutter that the recommended solution was to completely disable it. Ubisoft is not going to get rid of Ubisoft Connect, however, and in fact are doubling down on its mandated usage with their recent push towards silent key activation. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on this process. When you buy a game from a retailer, they have an Excel spreadsheet with thousands of keys for that game, and they just copy and paste one over to you. It's a bit smarter and a bit more automated than that, but that's how it works. With silent key activation, the retailer doesn't get that list of keys. Instead, the retailer records a sale and then passes that on to a middleman who also records the sale, and then you log into your Uplay account and that third party activates the game on your account. That means there's no game keys anymore. Ubisoft obviously loves this for several reasons. First, they control 100% of the distribution of the game. If a retailer doesn't obey Ubisoft, they can be immediately and irrevocably removed from the sales process. Secondly, they can control pricing. No longer can someone buy the key at a lower price and then sell it on the gray market later. The lowest available price is always a brand new key from Ubisoft. Thirdly, it stops a kind of fraud that almost certainly didn't exist, where a retailer would lie about when they sold a game key in order to claim that those sales occurred during a reduced price period. If this occurred, the retailer could skim additional revenue off the top. This kind of direct entitlement is something Ubisoft really wants to be industry standard, because it gives all the control to the publisher. This, however, has one side effect that no one seems to want to talk about, which is that it relies on Uplay working correctly. Since there is no game key, you cannot sell a physical product. Literally cannot sell a physical PC game. In fact, that's on purpose. And Ubisoft and their partners see this as a great thing because, again, it means control of the sales channel and control over the price. It still means that Uplay has to work correctly every single time. It's not hard to imagine a situation where Uplay just doesn't work right, and your money disappears into the ether and no one can verify that you paid for the game. Even still, none of this would be a problem if not for the fact that Ubisoft has shown they have no interest in maintaining availability of games. Remember not so long ago in this very video where I talked about them removing DLC and online capabilities? Well, that's because it was all tied to Uplay. And if they didn't have Uplay tied into DLC activation and online play, you'd be able to keep playing those games and keep playing that DLC just fine. But no, we need Uplay. Today's media landscape is increasingly made up of fractious and competing services. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Peacock, Viblio, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus. So many that you probably didn't immediately realize that Viblio was made up. Probably, it could be a real thing by now. Gaming is quickly following along, with its rocky start through Jump and Utomic and GeForce Now, through today with Amazon Luna, Apple Arcade, Google Stadia, Netflix Games, Nintendo Origin Access, Switch Online, PlayStation Plus, and of course, Xbox Game Pass and PC Game Pass. This is a growing business model for the industry and has become complementary to the normal distribution channels of digital and physical retailers. Ubisoft has their own subscription model as well, called Ubisoft Plus, which provides Ubisoft games for a monthly subscription. Ubisoft did a survey, and they found that 41% of gamers between 15 and 45 already subscribed to an online service like Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, or Nintendo Online. And a further 24% subscribed to either Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Now, EA Play, or some other subscription content service. And then 17% subscribed to both. For Ubisoft, this meant that they could pretty easily continue to increase their revenue, increase their share of that revenue, and increase their control over the games. It's a long-time truism that there's more profit in renting than selling, and while not everyone would consider subscribing to Ubisoft Plus, it was enough people that they felt it made sense. Ubisoft has a 30-year history of games, and they can offer all those games that might not be worth spending $10 each to play, but might be worth paying $10 to rent all of them. Additionally, Ubisoft has a mentality that their games do not replace themselves. For example, Assassin's Creed 4 does not replace Assassin's Creed 3. Unlike a live service game like Destiny or Overwatch, when a new Ghost Recon drops, the old game still holds a lot of value. There's a strong argument to be made that every Assassin's Creed is still playable and valuable. Plus, Ubisoft tends to release around 5 games a year, meaning that as long as it's priced competitively, it makes some sense to drop some money to, quote, save some money. Plenty of people are very happy to rent a game, play it, and then not have it anymore. This is the GameStop model, the Blockbuster model, the idea that you would pay less to get a new game knowing you're not going to own it in a few months. The problem is 3 things. First, this service only has Ubisoft games. Now, obviously, that's obvious, and in fact, I just gave a couple reasons why only Ubisoft isn't even that big of a problem. But it's still a concern for a lot of subscribers when you consider that the competition is something like PlayStation Now and Game Pass, both of which are going to present a lot of games from a lot of developers. While yes, Ubisoft Plus does offer over 100 games, 17 of them are Assassin's Creeds, 16 are Tom Clancy games, 8 are Far Cry, 6 are Anno, Heroes of Might and Magic, Rayman. Certainly, this has value for someone who really likes Assassin's Creed, or who really enjoys Watch Dogs. But it's not so much a Netflix-esque proposition where you have a wide and varied selection. Instead, it's like subscribing to Shudder, the premium streaming service with the best selection of horror, thriller, and supernatural movies and series, from Hollywood favorites and cult classics to original series and critically acclaimed new films you won't find anywhere else. Try a free trial for 7 days and experience the largest and fastest growing selection of new release and genre-defining classics. Check it out in the description. Unfortunately, if you're just not into Assassin's Creed, then you're probably not going to get as much value from Ubisoft Plus as you would from a more varied service. Second is biased subscription preference. Again, renting is more profitable than selling, so I want to encourage you to rent from me. That means I am incentivized to make rental look really good. That's why every Ubisoft Plus game includes all the DLC, all the upgrades, the premium of premium editions. Even if it's just a couple skins, just a handful of new missions, they can price a premium edition at an outrageous level, knowing full well that you do not intend to buy it. And if you do, great, they get some extra dosh, but it's intended to herd you into subscribing to Ubisoft Plus. Here, listen to this. Get monthly rewards throughout your journey in the Ubisoft Plus gaming subscription. Every month, enjoy your choice of different customization items, boosters, and more. Over time, progress through the ranks to increase your number of monthly choices and redeem more rewards. Redeem, accumulate, and keep your rewards, even if you cancel your subscription. You get more content, you get more gameplay, you get an easier gameplay experience if you just subscribe instead of buying. Why would you ever buy a game? You can just pay for Ubisoft Plus and get the best version of the game. Plus, get all sorts of extra perks. There is no intention for you to buy the $120 Ultimate Edition of Far Cry 6. Sure, if you want to, great, give us the profit. But really, we want you to see how much extra stuff you get for subscribing to Ubisoft Plus. Third is price. Ubisoft Plus is the most expensive gaming subscription at $15 or $18 a month, depending on your tier. Stadia, Luna, EA Play, all $10 a month. PlayStation Plus is $10, $15, or $18. Xbox Game Pass is $10 or $15 a month, depending on tier. That means that Ubisoft Plus is competing at a premium monthly price directly with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, PC Game Pass Ultimate, and PlayStation Plus Premium, while being more expensive than Stadia, Luna, EA Play, GeForce Now, Apple Arcade, Nintendo Switch Online, and the lowest tiers of Xbox and PlayStation. Expanding that out, it's more expensive than Netflix, than Spotify, than Amazon Prime. You could get one of those subscription boxes every month for less money, and if I'd had access to those, I would have put that affiliate shout out a minute ago here, encouraging you to buy a box of knives or whatever it is. No, Netflix isn't the same, but Netflix views gaming as a bigger threat to their platform than HBO, and for a reason. It's all about attention. So yeah, they're similar. They're going after the same people. And in a world where every single entertainment conglomerate wants access to your wallet on a monthly basis, it's really hard to say that of the 3 subscriptions you'll maintain every month, one of them should be Ubisoft Plus. Live service, games as a service, living game, live service game, they all mean the same thing. Always online, drip-fed content that players are meant to log into for several hours a week, forever. Daily quests, weekly quests, raids, new missions, remixing old content. Bring your own fun. It makes sense, don't get me wrong. Live service games generate tens of billions of dollars a year. In fact, EA, in May of 2022, admitted that 71% of the entire company's revenue came from live service games such as Apex Legends and FIFA Ultimate Team. Sony bought Bungie and then immediately announced they were working on 12 live service games. They make bucks. Ubisoft has been working on live service games since 2013, when it announced that they wouldn't even start making a game if they couldn't turn it into a franchise. They doubled down on this and started suggesting that players would never have to buy DLC again, because Ubisoft would only charge for cosmetics like trinkets and charms, skins, but not the characters themselves. A quick digression, this was not true. However, it did show how Ubisoft was thinking. Games are to be live services. Service is the key word here. Much like Ubisoft Plus, there's more value in renting than selling, and if we can rent you access to a game that itself is constantly changing, then you can never ever complete it. You can't get enough, you can't be done. We're renting you the experience and renting you access to it. So you have to keep renting forever and ever and ever. Enter Assassin's Creed Infinity, which, if you haven't heard, is the new Assassin's Creed game, and it'll be the last Assassin's Creed game because they'll update it forever and ever. Rather than continuing to pass the baton from game to game, we profoundly believe this is an opportunity for one of Ubisoft's most beloved franchises to evolve into a more integrated and collaborative manner that's less centered on studios and more focused on talent and leadership, no matter where they are within Ubisoft. Infinity is years away still, but likely not to be any singular game, but instead a platform, a live service platform, continually updated with new content, and launching from that, multiple experiences that tie together and unify. An interactive hub world, like Destiny or any other MMO. And then, of course, monetized like one, probably with a battle pass. We'll see this shift after Assassin's Creed Rift, the spin-off of Valhalla, but the goal for Ubisoft here is forever. One game updated forever with non-stop money rolling in. That Fortnite cash that Ubisoft is always going to be upset they missed out on. And finally, in this video about a video game company, we get to the part where I can talk about the actual games. I'm going to describe something to you, and I'd really enjoy hearing from you in the comments if this is something that you've experienced. You start up a new game. It opens with some big, spectacular action set piece. You're introduced to all the new characters, handheld and guided through your new home base with your new friends, and then introduced to a high point and a map, and the many icons on it that start to pop up immediately. Enemy bases, loot spots, puzzles, fetch quests, and hidden sections of the map that once you get there will also unlock new icons on the map. Bases, loot, puzzles, fetch quests. And then you feel the weight, the listlessness. You know already what the entire game plays like, because you've played this same game already, maybe many times. You've climbed the tower, you've sent out your bird, you've pinged the server, and all of those things sent out a wave on a map and highlighted new icons, a never-ending cycle of climb, icon, repeat, bases, loot, puzzles, fetch quests. I call this Ubisoft fatigue, and specifically Ubisoft and not open world, because while Far Cry 3 has certainly proven itself one of the most influential open world games, there are others that are also common. Skyrim clones, GTA clones, and Breath of the Wild clones. Each of those other three mother games represents a different kind of experience in the open world, and Ubisoft clones have a very specific feel. You can probably think back to the last Ubisoft game you put down and didn't pick up again, and feel the Ubisoft fatigue. I find it remarkable how a company with so many different kinds of games can manage to make them all feel so incredibly similar, so cookie cutter and unremarkable. Watch Dogs is Assassin's Creed, is Ghost Recon, is Far Cry. They are so incredibly samey. It speaks to their artist's skill that people don't immediately open the newest Ubisoft game churned out from the factory and immediately check the title to see if this is DLC for a game they've already played. At one point, being overwhelmed by massive open world maps with random, disconnected, unfun and non-engaging activities was a sign that the world was somehow alive and that you weren't the protagonist. The world had its own flow without you. Now, it just feels like filling up a progress bar to the next tired iteration. This game has been done before. That's the feeling, the Ubisoft fatigue, these map-clearing simulators. Burnt out and disinterested players rushing through the final few missions as a sort of sunken cost fallacy. It is with that feeling that I hear the words from Ubisoft when they announce their new Scalar technology. Scalar is a streaming technology for developers that theoretically will allow them to make games that are hundreds, thousands of times larger, using cloud computing to reduce dependency on players' hardware. Managing director Patrick Bach said, "We can now build even bigger worlds for players to play." And I feel fatigued. He says they want to build something big, and I feel fatigued. As you've seen, besides being French, there are all sorts of issues with Ubisoft, but that doesn't really seem to matter to Ubisoft. From removing paid-for DLC, ruining open-world gaming, the assaults, the NFTs, and even the things I didn't talk about like the Ubisoft theme park in Kuala Lumpur, which is expected to open in 2025, and the huge misstep of asking for fans to write music for Watch Dogs Legion on speculation in a lottery to maybe win $2,000, and yet with all of these issues, Ubisoft still doesn't want to actually fix anything. Some of these issues I've brought up have existed for years and have seen almost no movement whatsoever. The market does seem to notice, however, as sales are down at Ubisoft 9.8% in the first quarter of 2022 and down 4% year over year. Gamers are getting fatigued by the issues at Ubisoft, the games, the launchers, the DLC problems. People are tired of Ubisoft screwing up. I understand. That's why I made this video. I am also really tired of Ubisoft screwing up. I love The Division. It's my favorite Ubisoft game by several miles. And boy, they just keep trying to turn it into a battle royale. Well, I just want The Division 3 in the snow. But I don't see the Guillemot brothers stepping down anytime soon, and I don't see how these structural issues can be addressed with them running everything. However, there is a light in the tunnel. Tencent, the biggest game company in the world, is trying to buy the Guillemots out. They are offering twice what the stock value is. And while a $10 billion acquisition initially sounds high, in today's post-Activision, post-Zynga, post-Bungie, post-Embracer world, it almost sounds quaint. I won't say that a buyout would definitely make things better, but it would at least introduce the opportunity, and Ubisoft could certainly use that. The staff, the games, could use a break from the fatigue. Thanks to my patrons who made this video possible, and I'll see you on the next one.